Hi, everyone. Uh, Welcome to today's webinar series. Today's topic is invasive carp and tench monitoring in the Bay of Quinte. My name is Tom Castles, and I will be the moderator for today. I am the aquatic invasive species intern for the Invasive Species Center. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the Invasive Species Center honors the long history of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nation peoples on the lands now known as Canada. We and strives to show respect to their ancestors, to their communities, and to them individually. We greatly appreciate the significance of the lands, waters, and all living things, and offer gratitude to the Indigenous people for their care and teachings about our Earth. Our relationships with Indigenous communities are important, and we will continue to listen and learn how we can be in a good relationship with Indigenous peoples, the lands and waters, and all living things, and act accordingly. The Invasive Species Center acknowledges that our head office is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Batchewana, and Garden River First Nations, as well as the longtime settlement of the Métis people in a Robinson-Huron Treaty area. The Invasive Species Center is a non-for-profit organization that connects stakeholders, knowledge, and technology to prevent the introduction and spread of invasive species that harm Canada's environment, economy, and society. We also have lots of great invasive species resources on our website, including species profiles, some best management practices, and more. So check us out at invasivespeciescenter.ca. You can also sign up on our homepage for our newsletter, biweekly media scans, and event invitations, which is where you can hear about more upcoming webinars. The Invasive Species Center has also launched training programs. Right now, we have 4 courses currently available with new courses in development. So far, the program offers virtual self-paced courses for anyone wanting to learn more about the impacts of invasive species in their community or workplace. You can sign up to receive future updates on upcoming courses. And if you have any questions, you can visit our fact page on our website or email us at training@invasivespeciescenter.ca. With that, I would like to introduce our speaker. Kaitlin Maurer is an environmental monitoring lead at Quinte Conservation. She leads biological data collection for the Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan, monitoring fish habitat in the Bay of Quinte coastal wetlands. Kaitlin holds a Bachelor of Science degree in wildlife biology and conservation from the University of Guelph and has a passion for aquatic ecosystems. So before we get started with today's webinar, there are a couple of things I would like to mention. There will be a time for questions at the end of the webinar, so if you have a question for the speaker at any time, please type it in the question box and I will read it to the presenter after the webinar. We ask that you use the Q&A box and not the chat for this purpose, as questions in the chat may go unanswered. With that, Kaitlin, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Kaitlin from Quinte Conservation. Quinte Conservation is a nonprofit environmental protection agency serving the Moira River, Napanee River, Salmon River, and Prince Edward region watersheds. This work is in line with Quinte Conservation's strategic plan goals and vision to strengthen our natural ecosystems. The Bay of Quinte is located on the northeastern shore of Lake Ontario, forming a narrow Z shape that is 100 kilometers long, spanning from Trenton to Amherst Island, separated into 3 sections, with inflows in the lower bay from the Trent, Moira, Salmon, and Napanee rivers. It hosts 27 coastal wetlands, many of which are provincially significant, including the largest coastal wetland in Lake Ontario on the Canadian side. The Bay of Quinte is also designated as an area of concern, and Quinte Conservation is a partner in the Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan, leading data collection programs for the remaining beneficial use and payments. This work has included extensive wetland rehabilitation and work to reduce nuisance algae. There are 4 invasive carps in North America. So far, barriers between the Mississippi River and the Great Lakes Basin have kept populations out, except for the grass carp, the largest threat to the Great Lakes, as there are currently reproducing populations in the U.S. tributaries to Lake Erie. Current management strategies for the grass carp are focused on eradication or containment. So the Aquatic Invasive Species Program in the Bay of Quinte for this year focused on the grass carp and tench, and invasive Ctenopharyngodon, the same family as the common carp. These species were picked to the focus as they've both been captured in the Bay of Quinte before, and an ideal habitat exists for both species within the bay. Quinte Conservation's work with the Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan has allowed us to expand our current programs to increase monitoring capacity for these species in the Bay of Quinte, expanding on Fisheries and Oceans Canada's Aquatic Invasive Species Program, assisting with early detection and monitoring. The grass carp is native to Eastern Asia and primarily the Bay of Quinte, eating submerged aquatic plants that are rooted in sediment. They can eat up to 40% of their body weight in vegetation a day and growing up to 45 kilograms, expelling about half of the vat consumed into the water column, which can impact water clarity and contribute to algal blooms. The tench is a fish native to Europe and Western Asia, with populations in the US and a river in Quebec, and more recently found in the St. Lawrence and upstream Lake Ontario and the Bay of Quinte. The tench competes with native minnows, bullheads, and suckers for food and feeds on snails, which reduces the number of predators that consume algae and may contribute to algal blooms and reduce fertility. This map here shows the locations of previously captured specimens, with the top tench shown in red and the grass carp in orange. These fish were caught, reported, and analyzed for reproductive capabilities. In 2023, Quinte Conservation assisted the rapid response team to survey Muscogee Bay after the capture was reported. These grass carp are checked for reproductivity, as there are triploid grass carps that are sterile or non-reproducing, and fish that are capable of reproduction, or diploid. The Bay of Quinte grass carp captures have been a mixture of both. You can see in the red right here is where the tench was captured. In 2023, there was a grass carp in Muscogee Bay. In 2015, it was in Muscogee Bay. In 2023, there was also a capture in Douglastown, and then again in 2020. This year, Quinte Conservation partnered with DFO to increase capacity of the Aquatic Invasive Species Program within the Bay of Quinte. This was our first year participating in the program, and we received training, equipment, and procedural documents, and I'm hoping to increase efforts in the future. In 2025, we were able to sample 15 locations, collecting 50 samples between electrocution and larval fish efforts. This is a map here showing all of our sample locations, which includes the Trent River, the Maurer River, the Napanee River, Potter's Creek, another tributary to Bay of Quinte, Muscogee Bay, Sovereign Ditch Wetland, Big Island East Wetland, Washington Creek Wetland, Robinson Cove Wetland, and Hay Bay North Wetland. We sampled 45 electrofishing points, totaling 700 sampling minutes, and 15 larval fish samples were collected, totaling 900 sampling minutes. Our fish sampling was conducted using a boat electrofishery. Electrofishing is a non-lethal method to sample fish where an electric current is applied to the water from 2 anodes extending off the front of the boat, where the boat acts as the cathode. This electricity draws fish in towards the booms and temporarily stuns the fish, where it can be scooped up and placed in a live well containing water into the process. With Quinte Conservation's work with the Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan, we conduct annual assessments of the fish community within coastal wetlands, which means our boat is equipped with a special motor that can operate in wetlands with dense submerged vegetation. We conducted 2 types of electrocution sampling. The first one is called targeted sampling, where boat electrocution is used in conjunction with a tied-down gill net. This gill net is about 200 yards and is set in a semicircle, and electrocution occurs on the inside and the outside of the net for a total of 10 minutes. The fish are then processed, and then the gill net is pulled and fish from there are processed as well. Total set time for the gill net is about 20 minutes. The other method is called sustained sampling, which consists of just electrocution for 20 continuous minutes. In 2025, we did not capture any invasive fishes. The most commonly caught species was the common carp. This species is a surrogate species for the program, meaning it's a good indicator that the location and methods would have captured a grass carp if they were present. As the season progressed and aquatic vegetation biomass increased, our team transitioned from target sampling with the gill net to doing more sustained sampling. Other species captured included red horses, drums, bass, perch, shiners, and sunfish. Common carp were captured in the Trent River, Sovereign Ditch wetlands, Otter's Creek tributary, Robinson Cove wetlands, and Big Island East. Sampling occurred between June 25th and August 7th. Larval fish sampling was conducted at 5 locations using what's called the quadrifoil larval light trap, which is a clover-loop design and illuminated with a chemical light stick. Larval fish and other invertebrates are attracted to this light and enter the trap, which is then pulled and processed after 1 hour. Each of these 5 locations had 3 traps set, 1 in vegetation, 1 in woody debris, and 1 in open water. These locations were based on grass carp and tench spawning needs. Grass carp spawning has been linked to times of increased flow velocity and times of ideal water temperature, and occurs in large stretches of unimpounded rivers, such as 100 kilometers of the Trent River, which is on 5 miles. The tench spawn in different habitat in areas of densely vegetated little flow, like the coastal wetlands. I have a few photos here showing our quadrifoil light trap being deployed in the water in the top right, and then below it is the trap being set, and then this photo is what a larval fish captured looks like. Results are being analyzed through DNA. We also conducted temperature and light monitoring, where temperature and light loggers, the Hubble temperature, light, and temperature loggers were deployed at 5 locations in habitats where spawning would occur for either species from July to September. Data was captured every 5 minutes from the loggers, which were deployed using rebar stakes and PVC bushing. This PVC bushing was used to prevent damage and debris from impacting the results. Unfortunately, an unintended consequence of deploying these loggers with the bushing was significant accumulation of zeta mussels on the PVC bushing, which impacted light production. You can see in the photo here is one of our temperature loggers being deployed on the rebar stake, and then a photo of the logger inside the PVC cap and bushing, which had holes drilled into the front of it so water could flow. This graph is an example of the data that was collected with the temperature logger. This logger was set in Muscogee Valley, where grass carp was previously captured. The axis on the vertical is the date, with the top being in May and the bottom being the end of September. And then the axis along the bottom is temperature, spanning from 14 degrees to 29 degrees to show the range that occurs daily, and then the drop over the season. Ideal temperatures for grass carp spawning is between 20 to 30 degrees, and for tench 18 to 24, with the majority of the data being collected between these 2 temperatures. The ideal temperature was recorded at all locations. And that is it for content for the presentation, and I'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, so a couple of questions here. How do you decide where to sample? Is it based off like suitability characteristics, or is it mostly like just to do to like build access areas or things like that?
Yeah, so for fish sampling, our locations were selected based on previously research documents that were put out by universities and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada that identified for the grass carp areas that might be higher risk due to characteristics such as unimpounded river length for spawning, such as the Trent River. And then for the tench areas where dense aquatic vegetation occurred, and then for both species that feed on things that are found in our coastal wetlands, we decided to sample some of our larger coastal wetlands, such as Sogwen Ditch and Quinte Bay. And the other locations just kind of piggybacked on current sampling, so we could increase capacity with a limited budget. And for spawning and larval fish locations, again, they were selected based on spawning characteristics, which would be the unimpounded rivers for the grass carp and our coastal wetlands for the tench. So it was all based on information that has been researched either by our office or Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada or other people working on this fish.
Answer. Another question here. Does DNA testing show like where the fish came from? Like if it, or does it uh just confirm that it's like an invasive carp?
Yeah, so for our larval fish sampling, I'll just go back to that. So identifying larval fish at this stage, which is called the yolk stage, is extremely difficult based on taxonomic or visible characteristics, such as how you ID other fish. So the larval fish that were sent away for DNA were specifically to ID which species they were, to confirm that they are not the grass carp, as we could not ID them just based on characteristics. And then the fish that are adult that have been previously captured in the Bay of Quinte are analyzed for reproductive capabilities, and then also try to determine where that fish might come from structures in the body.
Uh, what was the typical temperature distribution in previous years?
So we don't have the same data from previous years that we collected this year. This was a new program for us, so we just purchased the temperature loggers this year. However, we do collect bi-weekly water samples from May to October at 9 locations in the Bay of Quinte. And temperatures are in line with what is displayed here, where it does not go below 14 degrees at any point in the growing season. However, additional years of data in more locations could further support this.
Does the PVC protector on the hobo samplers impact the light measurements?
It did, yeah. Well, not so much the PVC caps. We did drill in holes. The main purpose for capturing the light data was to capture if the light data was triggered by a stir-up in sediment from grass carp or other species feeding on that aquatic vegetation that's rooted in the bottom that causes turbidity or reduced water clarity. So we would see a spike during the day in that data. The data was mainly impacted from the zebra mussel accumulation on outside of the bushing that prevented the holes from receiving the same amount of light as they would have when they were first infected.
What's the single most important message that you want people to take away about invasive carp?
The single most important message for invasive carp is that early detection and rapid response is key to preventing the population establishment within the Great Lakes, and programs like this one supported by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada are key to preventing that population from occurring in the first place. invasive species management exponentially increases in funds and costs to the environment the longer it goes on. So these early detection monitoring programs are absolutely crucial for the Great Lakes ecosystem.
So with all this data collected, what are some of the next steps for, I guess, the progression of escalation?
Yeah, so as we didn't catch any grass carp this year, if we had caught a grass carp, our next step would have been to report it to the authorities so it could be analyzed in the same way that the previous specimens were, where they determine if it was fertile or not and where it potentially came from. The next steps for our monitoring to continue into future years would be looking at the data that was collected, the amount of fish and the temperature, and maybe refining locations and trying to conduct more monitoring.
Um, but, Another interesting question. Where do you believe the fish have came from? We know like they originated in Asia for the most part, but how are they coming into Canada now?
So currently, as I mentioned, there are no established populations of grass carp within the Great Lakes. However, there are reproducing populations in the U.S. tributaries to Lake Erie. This is the Sandusky and Maumee rivers. Populations have been in those rivers since the 1980s in low numbers, but historically they've largely been fertile. It's only in recent years that fertile specimens have been captured in this early detection program has been expanded. So the most likely spot for them to be introduced into the Great Lakes at the current stage would be from one of these tributaries or through the Mississippi River system, which is currently connected to the Great Lakes in Chicago. The Mississippi River does have an extensive population of grass carp.
Are there any native species of carp in Canada?
There is one species, the common carp, that is not native to Canada, but is considered naturalized at this point. It was brought into Canada in the 1800s as a forage or food fish after salmon collapsed in the Great Lakes. The common carp is frequent in the Bay of Quinte, and it was our surrogate species, but we were not concerned with that species in the same way that the grass carp and the other invasive carps are threat to the Great Lakes. Recently, there was a taxonomic split for the what's called the Ctenopharyngodon or minnow family. So currently, all of the minnows that were previously considered in that family are in a separate family, and the only species remaining are the carp, the fish, and the tench that are found in the Bay of Quinte.
Are there any laws in place from invasive carp being sold in wet fish markets in Canada?
Yeah, so live fish are not allowed to be sold within Canada, they're not allowed to be imported into states that border the Great Lakes. This doesn't include all of the states, but just the ones that are yet higher risk. And this is regulated under the Invasive Species Act, which is a regulation.
Right, I believe that's it for questions. I'll give another 30 seconds to see if any more pop up into the chat. Oh, did you have any surprises during the season?
I would say too many surprises. There were a couple fun things. We usually sample coastal wetlands, like I said, with our electrical equipment. So some of the species that we captured in the tributaries and rivers using the DFO protocol were exciting to us. Some red horses and jams, things they don't normally see. So that was probably observation for us. And it was good to see that we caught a lot of common carp. We typically do not catch a lot of common carp with our sampling protocol. But with the DFO invasive species protocol, we caught 16.
What was the largest common carp that you have caught or netted in the field?
The first common carp, they're typically all very large. This one here looks to be about 30 inches. Usually they're around 25 pounds. We did catch a more juvenile specimen this year in our Bay of Quinte wetland. That was about 5 pounds, but I would say that this specimen in the picture here is the most commonly encountered size. They have quite large fish.
Yeah, it looks huge. Do you have like a crazy carp story to tell?
I don't have a crazy carp story, but with the DFO protocol of sustained electrocution for 20 minutes, if we do spot a carp, we essentially chase it. So that's a little crazy. Floating around trying to catch the carp. Sometimes we went for what we thought was a carp, and it wasn't a carp once we got up to it. So we encountered like long-nosed gar, American eel, bowfins, largemouth bass, red horses can all look similar when you see them from afar. It's just large fish in the water.
Interesting. Uh, what are some common species that are mistaken for invasive carp?
Some common species are mistaken for invasive carp, specifically the grass carp, would be common carp and red horses. They're both large fish, which can have large scales. Let me just go back to this empty photo here. Invasive fishes, invasive carps Canada has a great resource for common ID features and fish that could be mistaken for the grass carp. This also includes the baitfish primer for the tench, which as a minnow could look similar to other fishes. Sorry, as a small juvenile fish, could look similar to other minnows. But you can see that the grass carp here has a very small dorsal fin, that's the top fin, whereas the common carp has an extended, well, it's not visible in this photo, but it ranges from basically where the forehead of the fish is to about a couple inches away from the caudal or tip.
Have you seen any brown goldfish in Quinte?
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that?
Have you seen any brown goldfish in Quinte?
We actually don't really catch any goldfish or the brown species that is caught in more reproducing populations in Great Lakes, such as the Ctenopharyngodon. Quinte Conservation has not ever caught a goldfish in the Bay of Quinte, but I believe they could be present in some others.
And an offshoot of that question, what would you do if you catch like a hybridized goldfish with a common carp?
We would contact our partners to determine what the best method is. If it's something that's going to be a threat to our ecosystem, then we don't want to release that. But like I said, the common carp itself is considered a naturalized species at this point, and for the majority of species.
Is there any efforts using eDNA sampling methods
We
at the
have,
moment?
in the past for other projects. This year we decided not to do eDNA just based on budget constraints, but it is something that we would be interested in. It's typically used as an early detection tool to determine if something's in the area. Our sampling kind of piggybacks off that method of trying to find the leading edge of populations. Our office is well equipped to collect eDNA samples, and we do collect eDNA samples in the past for things like water survey, which is a restricted product.
Is there any known fisheries for carp in the US or Canada?
Fisheries in terms of consumption, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Grass carp actually populations in Asia are sometimes largely kept in check by human consumption. That is not really as big as part of the culture in North America. So I'm not sure if there are any fisheries specifically for consumption in North America. There are grass carp that are imported for personal and commercial usage, but not necessarily for food.
For the commercial and personal usage, is that mostly in the United States?
Yes, sorry. It's been illegal since 2007 to import a live grass carp in states bordering the Great Lakes, but that's not the case for the rest of the states. Typically, the grass carp could be used as sort of a lawnmower, essentially, in ponds or channels or canals. But because they eat so much vegetation, and impact that water clarity, but that trade-off might not necessarily be a bad thing for things for that usage in the States, but for us in the Great Lakes is a major concern.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions here. So I would like to conclude. Thanks everyone for listening. And if you have time, please fill out the survey. The survey should pop up after the webinar is over. Thanks everyone for listening. And thank you, Kaitlin.